All I must do is fight in a manner befitting the way of the sword.
Hi everyone, it's Nimius. Today we're going to look at the newest legendary hero, Ryoma, and he is a part of the new legendary hero summoning event, of which I would have to say this is not the strongest crop of heroes. I think if you really want to pull on this banner, it has to be for blue. Winter Robin, Harden, Fjorm are pretty good heroes, and the only other color you should pull on is for reds, and that's only if you really want Ryoma. Now, to try and help you decide if you really want Ryoma, and go over his skill set, his stats, his builds, and any other opinions or thoughts on him. Now, as some of you guys know, he is a Kinshi Knight, and I always jokingly say he's a chicken knight. But one of the weird things about him is that he's not supposed to be using a sword, yet he is. I can't really imagine why, but I imagine IS probably has some canon reasons for that. It's this one. Oh my god. This is so mean. Oh my god. Alright. Why did I not leave a heart here? Anyways, yeah. I couldn't help but show you guys that comment. That comment was too good. If we can get a start here, I want to give you guys my full disclosure here. I'm not a fan of Ryoma. That's because of Conquest, and I like Xander so much more. But despite all of that, I want to tell you guys, I'm going to give you an unbiased look at him. That means I won't let my personal feelings get in the way of telling you what's good about him and what's bad about him. Alright, to start things off, let's take a look at his stats. And I would have to say, he's pretty immense here. At 162 BST, he has Phase 2 BST, which matches his BST to the same as Shigure. The only flyers with more BST than him are the Dragon Flyers, being Grima and Myrrh. Basically, the way Ryoma is positioned is basically a supercharged Ryoma on a chicken that's flying. He's very similar in terms of every stat line, except he's boosted up in attack, speed. In any situation though, he should be used about the same as Ryoma, except, you know, he's flying. His super bane is defense. As such, you want to aim for minus HP or minus res for Ryoma. And for boons, you want attack and speed, with preference towards speed, I would say. Either one is fine, but if you go for plus attack, just know it's really good for single shot kills, particularly against greens, or better dueling capability against armor, and even disadvantaged matchups such as Lancers. For plus speed, it's possible this is even better, because at neutral, without an A skill, Ryoma can reach 39 speed, which is immense if you think about it, because with Fury or Life and Death, he can reach 53 to 55 attack, and at least 45 speed, which allows him to easily fight off other fast sword heroes, and really prevent doubles on just about anything, except for brave weapons, of course. But to put that in perspective, he is easily the fastest flyer, and the second fastest hero in the game, behind only Mia, and like Mia, he brings the best balance of speed and attack. He's a complete powerhouse, but there's a few flaws, and it's here in the next section, the skill set. Unfortunately, in most situations, there's really no skills you want to keep here. Kestrel Stance is pretty good, but the issue is it's not the best usage of offensive stats. What I'm saying is, when you have a stance skill, you really want to be using it defensively, yet Kestrel Stance is positioned to be used offensively by giving you speed and attack. The only situations where this would make a difference is if somehow Ryoma doesn't double on the enemy hero, and then when he gets attacked with Kestrel Stance, he now doubles and he now gets that slight bit of attack to get the kill. That rarely happens. And if it does happen, given how fast he naturally is, it's just not worth it in general by giving up his A skills for a defensive purpose when generally he should be used offensively. This is possibly one of the worst stances in the game for completely the wrong hero. There's a complete lack of focus here, and you really just don't want him to get hit defensively. At least not to use a stance, right? If you use him to get hit defensively, it better be with things like Vantage in mind, and in which case, you know, the speed portion isn't really as necessary, because if you could just get the kill ahead of time, if they never hit you, or you never need a double, you know, the speed portion is not very useful. So moving on, Kestrel Stance, you probably want to replace. For B, he has Bushido, which is plus 10 damage when a special triggers. Unfortunately, this is like bootleg Wrath. Everybody was talking about this when it first came out because it was just such a lackluster skill. If you want to use Ryoma with something that does 10 extra damage when a special triggers, you are far better off going for Wu Dao. and Regento's just quite a good blade that you really shouldn't give up on it. But if you do want to go down that position, Buuuuut is generally better because you want the ability to use Desperation, or you want the ability to use a Breaker skill, or just about anything, really. That B skill is quite important, and just for 10 extra special damage, it's just not as useful as, say, Desperation, or Vantage, or most other skills. So I can't really recommend keeping this skill. I'm just puzzled myself that it's so lackluster. For his final skill, it's Guidance, and again, this is really iffy because I don't know the teams that you guys will be running, but if you are running infantry team, it may be better off to keep it, of course. But there are several cases where you're better off using another skill, such as, you know, tactic skills or drive skills. Guidance is not always necessary for everybody, and having the extra movement does help, and it can make an immense difference. If you run a Fire Emblem team, for example, this ability is completely useless. You just cannot use Guidance for flyers, right? And in that case, you probably want to use Hone or Fortify flyers or something like that. In other words, this skill set is really bad. I know he has Glimmer, and, well, he just doesn't need it, really. But if you want to use it with Bushido, I can understand. It's just that, know that it's not the best possible combination for him. Instead, if it were me, I would replace everything but Regento. As the only flying hero with this encounter weapon, you should probably keep it. Anything that separates him from the pack, and that pack is massive. There are so many red sword heroes in the game. Well, not that you can have sword heroes be any other colors, but you know what I mean. There's just no point in using him unless there's something that separates him, and the only thing that separates him is that he's flying, and that he has this encounter, and he has this mixture of amazing attack and speed, right? There's just not enough of a difference otherwise if you replace Regento to use him over somebody else. So with that said, definitely keep Regento, and that's why in the build section, which is coming up right now, I would never suggest you guys to change it up. So before I talk about the builds in depth, I want you guys to understand I only suggest builds I believe in, right? I can't suggest something I don't believe in because I don't feel right telling you guys, you know, to build this hero this way, or suggesting you to build a hero and asking you to commit so much to it when deep down inside I know I wouldn't do this, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. With that said, I've seen crazy builds for Ryoma. There are builds with like Brave Sword plus Life and Death, which of course he can do, but just know that Ilincia in that exact same row would be far better for less cost, or builds that use Fire Sweep, and while I'll admit that could work pretty good, it's just a lot of unnecessary and more expense, and involves sacrificing more than you gain from it. The way I see it from that position is that you lose what makes Ryoma special, and that's that this encounter in his Regento, the 16 might, and the ability to counterattack, right? All that is gone if you use Fire Sweep. So everything that separates him from the pack is gone. I just do not agree with that personally. As that's the case, I'm afraid I can only suggest 2 builds for him, and these 2 builds are fairly plain. I'm sorry for that, but from the way I see it, if you're going to reach Ryoma's true potential, and with such beautiful offensive stats, I think the more simple, the more better. The 2 builds I would recommend for him is pretty much the normal Ryoma builds. So for build number 1, I would go for the tried and true Ryoma build that you have seen probably on everybody, on every Ryoma, and that is to use Draconic Aura, Fury, and Vantage with your choice of C. The reason why this is so good is because, number 1, it is the lowest possible cost for the best utilization of Ryoma stats. The idea is simple. Ryoma with his high speed and attack should be able to duel and beat just about any other sword infantry. With Hone Flyers, infantry shouldn't be able to keep up in buffs, as, you know, the maximum for an infantry hero to be buffed up is simply +4. Now, there are moments where tactics comes in and that changes things up, but generally you're going up against Hones and, you know, Fortifies, in which case Ryoma being a flyer with Hone Flyers adding +6 to speed, +6 to attack, he should easily outspeed them, out-attack them, and win that engagement. As long as he's in the same merges anyways. Now, there are other factors too, like if it's Water Season and there's Water Blessing on your opponent, that could ruin things, or they have Dry Speed or other buffs. But it should be okay, because the worst that can happen, unless Ryoma is, you know, Panic Ployed, is that you cause a draws situation, in which case Vantage allows him to win the battle. Furthermore, once he's in Vantage, he can wipe out green mages in one shot, or continue to fight against green axe heroes, as his bulk is pretty decent, and should be sufficient enough even after fighting another red. This is overall the best balance of attack and defense for Ryoma, and ideally you have Ryoma fight a red sword hero first, get the kill, get into Vantage, and then use the Vantage to kill a mage, in which case Ryoma takes out at least 2 out of 4 in an arena position, if you're thinking about arena. Not to mention, if he is attacking, he might be able to just overwhelm and just one-shot them anyways, other heroes. Even colorless heroes, well, especially colorless heroes, they'll just get overwhelmed. So in that case, I would say that's the best balance between attack and defense. However, if you are looking for something more offensive, that is build number 2. And while I do believe in it, and I see the true offensive value in it, it takes quite a bit out defensively from Ryoma. And this build uses Life and Death, Fury, or Swift Sparrow for their A slot, and then Desperation for their B slot. Again, Draconic Aura, because his attack is so immense, it's hard to use anything else really. Luna or something like that is just plain overkill. And if it's for arena, of course use Ether, guys. That's just for the points. But yeah, again, your choice is C, and I see your choice is C all the time because I don't know if you're running him with, infantry heroes, in which case you might want to keep Guidance. If you're running him with flyers, of course, try and fortify, wards, golds, so on. In any case, I'm gonna break down when you want to use Life and Death, when you want to use Fury, and when you want to use Swift Sparrow. Life and Death is definitely what you want to go for if you believe you can pull off one-shot kills. And the reason for that is if you combine him with plus attack, boon, Life and Death, Hone Flyers, and Ryoma just gets to this amazing 64 attack that allows him to one-shot plenty of colorless heroes, plenty of green heroes, and against reds, it's a bit iffy, but at the very least allows him to take on armor in 2 shots and win. Unless the armor is one of those red armor anyways, unless the armor is anything ridiculous, like, built completely for defense. Now, the beauty of this build is it allows Ryoma to even overwhelm Lancers like a Nephany, like a Brave Lucina, or like anything on a horse actually. But yeah, it gives him a lot of flexibility and it really allows him to take on anything just about in any situation. The only problem is if he can survive the hit, and that's why I think Fire Emblem really helps out here. The Fortify Flyers would really help him survive, and for seals you might want to try close defense or something like that. But basically, if he can survive and if he can get into Desperation, he should be able to run over just about anything. Now, the times you want to go for Fury and Swift Sparrow over Life and Death is pretty simple. You go for Fury if you believe you need the defensive option more. Now, if your team is built up that he is your only tank, say if you use 2 mages or you use a dancer or something like that, then you might want him to have more bulk, especially for the first fight, in which case Fury provides that by giving you +3 to all stats. Now, for the long term, Fury is not as good as Swift Sparrow. Now, Swift Sparrow doesn't give you the stats when you're attacked the first time, but if you have him as simply a striker and you have somebody else to tank, say if you use Baruka or something, then this probably makes more sense in general. Now, when you attack something, you don't lose that 6 HP, and so if you actually have to defend, without the chip damage, you should be able to take a shot, and with his high base speed, he should be able to take the shot and not get doubled and survive. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to pick out what you want here between Life and Death, Fury, and Swift Sparrow. They're all good, but just keep in mind your needs, your composition, and go for whatever is appropriate for you. Alright, finally we get to the 2 other builds that I am not a big fan of, and number 1 is, I kind of mentioned it, but before I talk about it, I want to mention that Ryoma can probably do any builds. He is just so fitted for anything. He can reasonably run this quad strike build I'm about to mention with Luna, Life and Death, Desperation, and Speed +3 seal, right? Again, your choice is C. The reason why you don't quite want this build is because, as I mentioned at the start, Ilincia just does this build better. And what separates Ryoma is Raijinto, and if he's not using it, he's not the best choice for it, is what I'm trying to say. If you get Ryoma, you definitely want to use him for a different purpose, and if you don't have Ilincia, I would say just to use Ryoma normally, because the quad strike builds are pretty gimmicky. There's very few situations where the quad strike actually makes a difference. Once Ryoma is in Desperation, getting him attacking something twice is usually enough to get the kill. There's very few times where he will need a quad strike. Now, quad strike can do ridiculous things like overwhelm, blue armor, alright, with Luna, with guaranteed Luna and that quad strike. But again, I don't think he needs it. And if you really want to do quad strikes and stuff like that, there are other heroes that are better suited for it in general. So again, just to reiterate, he is the only flyer with this encounter weapon, so to not use it is just simply a big shame. Finally, we get to the ultra budget build, which is to simply put Vantage on him with Kestrel Stance and Vantage, and that's it. Keep Guidance. And the reason why I say this is the ultimate budget build and the reason I suggest it is because I would rather use Kestrel Stance over Bushido. Bushido involves you getting hit. Even if you have that special, and even with Glimmer, it's not a guarantee that you get the one-shot kill. And if you always need to get into combat, and you don't kill them one shot, and with Ryoma not being the most bulky of heroes, he could go down. So, in that case, you probably don't want to go for that kind of build. Instead, with Kestrel Stance does work to a certain degree with advantage. As I mentioned earlier while going over Kestrel Stance, it's probably one of the worst stances in the game for this hero, for Ryoma. So I wouldn't really suggest this build, but if you don't know what to do with him or your IVs aren't perfect, but you still want to use him, definitely go for Kestrel Stance advantage and probably replace your special skill with just about anything. I would say Draconic Aura still, but Glimmer's fine. Anyways, I think that's all the potential builds for Ryoma. But again, guys, first two builds are what I think would allow him to reach his full potential. Now finally, I'll give you guys my thoughts on how Ryoma should be used. I'm going to mention that he doesn't need to be used in Fire Emblem, but if he were in a Fire Emblem team, he'd be a monster, and for obvious reasons. He already has such high attack, high speed, but his bulk, it's not bad at all. With Fury, you can reach 31 defense, having neutral defense, and then with 4 or 5 flyers, with like close defense or something, he can reach like 40 something defense, which is more than enough to keep him alive in most situations. And once he gets to attack, he should be able to prevent the double and then to double back, So if he has the support with Hone Flyers, Fortify Flyers, Ward Flyers, Gold Flyers, or so on, the stat boost turns him into an absolute monster, and he'd be able to fulfill any role. But if he's an infantry team, he's not much worse off, because I still consider Infantry Ryoma top 5 infantry sword hero in the game, not infantry. Oh, that's a bit too much. And he would fulfill the same roles except a bit more, because he would have extra movement with guidance, and that can help the rest of your team move really quickly. And he would fulfill the same roles as the red tank, as the red duelist, as the normal Ryoma, except now he's flying and more prone to dying to arrows. Like his dad. Anyways, guys, for my final thoughts, I gotta tell you guys my opinion on him, and that is, while he's good, he's not necessary. The reason for that is, currently there are 3 really good banners. The new Bridal Banner, the old Bridal Banner, and, well, I would say this banner, but this banner only for the blues. I really think blues is the strongest pick here, with Winter Chrom having Armor March, Brazen Attack Speed, Harden having Bold Fighter, Brazen Defense Res, and finally Fjorm. And that Fjorm is mostly because she's a consistent bonus hero and she is worth tons of points. There's a lot of reasons to go for blues in the current banner and just to skip out on reds. Perhaps the biggest reason is that CYL2 will be arriving in June and at the latest July. So Choose Your Legends 2 is probably going to have some ground-shattering heroes that will change the meta. So don't be caught unaware by CYL2 by spending too many orbs here. I'm not saying don't pull for him though. If you really like Ryoma, and I know there's a lot of fans of Ryoma, definitely go for him. But unless you really need a sword hero, I wouldn't do it. There's just better banners coming up, and it's not like he wouldn't be back anytime soon. He's on the Legend Heroes banner. He should come back fairly frequently. So if it means waiting a couple months, I would do that. But what do I know? I'm just a free-to-play player. Anyways, that is everything. If you guys disagree or you agree, please let me know in the comment section below. This was Nimius. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of segment, this kind of video. And so if you did, leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, have a great day, guys.